Drawing
You
dead.
wouldn't.
Nah. We don't play that.
All right. Welcome and good afternoon, wherever you may be. It could be good morning. We appreciate you spending a couple of minutes with us today on the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show, on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. We only ask that you smash away as you join our show. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, the Awesemo Odds channel, the Awesemo DFS channel as well. Same usual suspects in the house. Chris is producing, Loughran here, Rasa here, myself. We have waiver wire action to get to. We have takeaways from week one. Still have one game left tonight, but a chunk of action on Sunday to look back and reflect at. So we appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Again, take full advantage of a couple of things that we have going on here on site, including, of course, our promo code DAC. It's the last day to take advantage of this. The NFL Weekly Express Pass for just $1. DAK, a quarterback in Dallas. I know a lot has happened since Thursday night, but use our promo code DAC and you'll get the NFL Weekly Express Pass for just $1. We'll tell you about Yahoo, who's powering the show coming up. But fellas, gentlemen, Loughran, Rasa, we're back following a busy weekend. And I know that a lot has been clouded with the Philadelphia Eagles. Like Rasa, Loughran, we had to bring him down from cloud nine because he was right on this Miles Sanders stuff. He's right on the Eagles coming out with a victory. But we have a lot to get to today, and I'm excited because we actually have some football under our belts.
I think we were both kind of right on Sanders in the sense that neither of us saw Scott not playing at all. So
right.
that's a good thing, though. See, people look at Kenny Gainwell playing yesterday, and we'll get into this in depth, and they say, oh, man, that's not good for Sanders. But Sanders still had 20 looks, and he was great in pass protection, and there's a lot to be happy about there. If it's just him and Gainwell, I'm fine with Sanders playing 60 to or 65, 70%, probably more at times too, of snaps. But yeah, Gainwell second 2-minute drill back. Anyway, I'm licking wounds from yesterday. Season long was great. I have one dynasty team, and it's with some pretty sharp people. That is Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Antonio Brown, Lamar Jackson, Darren Waller. Those guys haven't even played yet. You play 13 players. It's a 13 players. It's a super flex league. I have Cam Akers in that too, which sucks. DeAndre Hopkins, all of these guys. I'm like, man, Julio wasn't very good. Chase Claypool, and just, wheeling and dealing. And I look at my team and I'm like, man, Julio wasn't great. I see my score. And then I realize I still have Lamar and Waller. So we're golden there. Got Antonio Brown in our Awesemo A league, feeling good about that. But and a whole lot of other stuff went really well. And Elijah Mitchell in a lot of dynasty leagues. But Ben, I was super high on Raheem Mostert yesterday. I had him in almost all of my DFS lineups, and I never go that overweight on a player. I just thought he was super underpriced. I hammered all of the over props last week before the sermon news, all of the to score props, everything. I mean, that was a killer for me, and I know for you as well.
Not great. Yeah, I mean, it was a situation. The news broke. Didn't think Trey Sermon would be inactive, and I immediately ran. And me and Eytan just did a betting show on the Awesemo Odds channel. We were talking about the value you can get if you beat the book to the big news. And I was with you, Loughran, went over there. And then on a personal insult, a guy that I had said, I don't think he's going to get any playing time, but Elijah Mitchell coming out of Louisiana Lafayette. I love this guy. I just didn't think there was any way he was going to see the field early in the season. And he ran absolutely wild. I don't know how you could watch that and think that Mostert wasn't in line for just a massive output to start the year.
Yeah, injuries. Mostert, I know for you guys personally, and killed Loughran, as we found out, as you just heard 5 to 10 times over. Ryan Fitzpatrick goes down, Jerry Jeudy goes down. You just look and think, for people that across the board, if it's streamlining a quarterback, maybe in Fitzpatrick, or using him as a battle between another guy on there, just thinking about it from the grand scheme of things, this is just the nature of it, especially early on. To see somebody go down, to anticipate people out now for the next couple of weeks at least. But clearly Mostert, I know for a lot of people, because of Sermon being out ahead of time, that was a killer to say the least. But we had a couple of these pretty big injuries across the board.
Yeah. There were the Jerry Jeudy one is big. That'll affect the waiver wire. But then it wasn't just injuries, right? It was like the Titans offensive line was terrible. Chandler Jones had 5 sacks. What a disastrous day for Titans offense. I mean, we said on our the daily fantasy show, the deeper dive that we do at 10:30 Eastern or 10 o'clock Eastern every Sunday, getting you ready for DFS, that something's going to pop off in that Arizona Titans game. It's going to happen. Yeah. And it did. It just happened to all be from the same side. I mean, Murray stacks with Kirk and Hopkins were massive, but on the other side, it was brutal. And what about the fact, and I saw somebody mention this in chat, the NGT, that Brandon Ayuk, a guy that was being drafted in the early middle rounds, Brandon Ayuk was a non-factor. The guy wasn't even considered a starter yesterday. And we haven't even scratched the surface on some of the crazy shit that happened throughout the league in week 1.
No, we will. We'll hit a couple of takeaways first and foremost, and we're going to dive deep into the waiver wire and give you an early look at who to take advantage of, especially in some deeper leagues to really bounce around here on the waiver wire. So if you have a sneaky play or a sneaky pick that we should have our eyes on the waiver wire right now on this show, then hit us up in chat. We'll get to them by all means. But let's start, as you mentioned, Luffy, with all of the craziness. Ben, why don't you kick things off? Your number one biggest takeaway from week 1 so far?
So, yeah, I mean, I think one of the major storylines, there were some teams that were no-shows. There were some teams that looked ridiculous. And I think at the top of that list, it's got to be the Saints. And one of the questions everyone had was who was going to be the quarterback? Jameis answered that in the preseason. And then B, how would the team look different from Drew Brees to Jameis? And I think it's pretty clear, not that they're going to just be world beaters all year, but with Jameis, it gives Sean Payton more options in terms of how to design that offense. You saw these guys taking deep shots, certainly hit the bomb to Harris when the game was out of hand. Kamara was a non-factor early. Now that's going to change when these games stay competitive, but I think the Saints offense looks extremely dangerous with Jameis. You've got to love it if you've got him. And I think all the weapons, whether Michael Thomas comes back healthy and all the gadget guys, are going to be in a better position, because Drew Brees, in some regards, even though he's a great player historically, he was limiting, the checkdowns were such a focal point. Here, they've got a whole nother option to really blow the roof off. I like the Saints, and it's hard not to be impressed with what we saw yesterday.
Dude, he threw a touchdown on 36% of his completions.
Yeah, that's good.
That's ridiculous.
That's not bad.
Nope.
There was a lot to like when it came to Jameis Winston. And it's funny because he only attempted 2 deep balls, right? But one of them was a 55-yard touchdown to Deontay Harris. And you know that he has that deep ball in the arsenal when he needs to use it. Not to mention, too. Well, why do people say not to mention? I'm just about to mention something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Doesn't make any sense. It's like when someone says,
no
you
offense.
have a shit-eating grin on your face. Why would anyone grin while eating shit?
Well, you never know people's palates, man. You never know what people like.
And
That's
actually,
not where I thought you were going.
No, but I'm saying the things that don't make sense that we still use anyway, right? That's what I mean. It actually comes from some certain ground-dwelling animal that would smile when eating shit. I looked it up.
Are you serious? Like, do you really know this?
Dead up, yeah. Oh, yeah, I looked it up. Yeah,
it's not like a pig who eats its own shit that we got it from. Like it's rodent.
It's not a porcupine, but it's it's something. You can look it up. So look up the origins of shit-eating grin and get back to me, chat. But when you have Alvin Kamara in the backfield, you're deadly. You're absolutely a lethal offense. And we saw that yesterday. Sean Payton gets so much hate. This dude knows how to run things. Like, he figures it out. When it was Taysom Hill, they still won games. When it was Breeze and a shot arm, they still won games. When it was Teddy Bridgewater starting 6 games 2 years ago, they still won games. Jameis Winston, I've said this from the beginning. I think he's going to be efficient this year. I think Payton is going to curtail his usage or his those reckless kind of propensities that he had in Tampa, but he's going to be better than he was there, more efficient. So we can take some of the recklessness that was good for fantasy, and it'll suck that we don't have that. But I think the efficiency will make up for that. I'm with Ben. This offense, now granted, the Packers were trash yesterday.
Yeah,
awful,
trash,
awful.
But I think this could be a deadly offense, and they don't even have Michael Thomas yet.
No, and I think one thing that's, and again, back to that narrative term here, the one thing that I think won't be talked about enough is the year that Winston had sitting behind and watching Drew Brees play this position and really getting an appreciation for it. And also having this confidence. And you mentioned, as far as not being asked to throw the ball 55 times, 30 of those 55 times, 20 plus yards down the field, just be wildly belligerent. with the football. If you can rein this in on a week-to-week basis, it's not going to be as bad as it was against the Packers, who just didn't show up, but they played winning football. I mean, they played winning football to beat a lot of teams yesterday. They just happened to take on a Packers team who was dog shit.
Yep.
All right, Lofty, your biggest takeaway from week one.
There's so many of them. And like, I honestly wish we had 3 hours to do this show because there's so much to get into, but the rookie running back hype, once again, it's a lesson that we have to learn. Like, I'm not talking about Najee Harris. Najee Harris wasn't particularly efficient, but he played 100% of snaps. That's why we said all year, all right, is he going to be super efficient? Probably not. But if you're out there 100% of the time, it doesn't matter what the flow of the game is. Najee Harris is going to be fine. I'm talking about guys like Michael Carter, who is being drafted well ahead of where he should be. But more importantly, Trey Sermon. Look, I've been wrong on a lot of stuff, but one spot where I'm generally more right than wrong is tempering expectations with some of these rookie backs that are on teams that already have backs that can produce. And he was inactive. I didn't see that coming. Nobody saw that coming. Completely inactive. Shanahan was essentially saying that we think that he is not one of the top 3 backs on the roster right now. I mean, what?
Yeah.
What? So you get Elijah Mitchell that comes in, and Trey Sermon's not even out there. So if Mostert's out next week, yeah, sure, Sermon will be active, might even get some opportunities. But this is a guy who people were drafting as their flex player, or in 0 RB leagues as their RB1. That's scary right now. You know, in Dynasty, you drafted Mitchell, you feel awesome. It's the same thing back. It happens all the time. Like with the Packers, where everyone was high on Jamal Williams, drafted the same year as Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones became the clear starter there. It happens more times than we'd like to admit, but week one, if it's any indication, you're going to see a lot of that. And it's worth paying attention to.
Yeah, I mean, I was just stunned because Elijah Mitchell is also a rookie, and it just shows you don't even know where it's coming from.
6th round.
Yeah, 6th round as a complete flyer for them. And it's true. I think you have to separate a guy like Najee Harris. You know that he's going to be a focal point of the Steelers offense. And that was validated. When you're on the field that much, you know the volume's going to be there and the efficiency will ultimately come. But for these other guys, we did talk about it all year, to be honest, that the overreaction, the appeal of trying to be first to a player and spend up and that opportunity cost, I think we saw in week one, a lot of times it's overblown with the talent is there, but that doesn't mean at the beginning, these teams that already have established vets, whether it's Tevin Coleman or Mostert, who of course got hurt, you just don't see it right out of the gate too often.
Yeah, a lot of times, right, it goes with the game script and the flow, where if it's game one early on in a season and a head coach needs to win a football game, and this young kid that you bring in to perform, it's the balance, as you mentioned, of a veteran who you at least it's showing up in a game versus continuing to go with an unknown factor third quarter or so in a game. That could be a major difference right there.
But with Sermon, it's even crazier, Eytan, because Sermon was a 3rd round pick that they traded up for, and Mitchell was a 6th round pick. They're both rookies. Mitchell was a rookie that got 19 of 20 running back carries after Mostert went down. And it sucks because Mostert had 2 for 20. He was going to annihilate the Lions. I'm still salty about this.
No, you're right. All right. Take advantage. Look, we're giving you a bunch of stuff here. We mentioned that today is really the last day you could jump on our NFL Express weekly pass for just $1. Use our promo code DAK, D-A-K, but also here with Yahoo, we want you to take full advantage of what we have going on. And we're going to give you 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum with your first Yahoo DFS deposit. It has to be your first. Can't sneak in here if you've been doing this a bunch. You're a savvy vet on this. Has to be your first Yahoo DFS deposit, but we'll give you 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. And you already know with Awesemo Plus, the damage you can do. You add the platinum to that, and then, my goodness, sky is the limit. I was surprised, and I'm going to go counter to my team in real life, because I was surprised with how this Eagles-Falcons game ended in the second half, way more than I was at just what happened in the first half. You can apply penalties as an issue. The Falcons were moving the ball, but especially from a DFS or fantasy standpoint here, when the Falcons are down, they have 3 guys in Gage, Pitts, and of course Ridley, who you're able to take away some chunks of field with. You can move the ball. They've shown that they were horrific last year at times, and they were still able to put points up and move the ball down the field. I'm not going to totally overreact to week one, But let's be honest, this Eagles defense is not lights out. This is not the reinvention of the 85 Bears here with this Eagles defense. So the fact that the Falcons were just nil, like they were absolutely nothing in that second half, where you still had Pitts and Ridley and Gage out there not doing anything, that was really concerning, I think, moving forward, where that's really their time to shine from a fantasy standpoint, and they were just held to nothing, literally 0 points in the second half.
Just to reiterate, that Awesemo Plus Platinum is $100 value a month. People would do nasty things to get that. No, in all seriousness,
eat shit and grin with it.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, I'm just pointing this out. I know this is a season long, but for if you want to dive into DFS and you haven't done it before, literally the best opportunity you'll ever have to do that and get every premium tool that we have on the site for 2 months is just sign up and deposit at Yahoo and test out their DFS product, which is good to begin with some huge prizes. Right? I thought this was a mistake when they gave me this read yesterday. I legitimately thought it was a mistake because I don't know why we're giving out 2 consecutive $100 months just to sign up at Yahoo, but we are. So just to throw that out there. I give a lot of credit to Jonathan Gannon, our defensive coordinator. Eytan, I say I gotta step back.
Don't lump me in with this nonsense.
Look at that. Ross is like, don't hold on now.
I think he made market adjustments and improvements throughout the game, which the Eagles have never seen in a long time. I really do. Like they couldn't stop the run in the first quarter, and then Atlanta couldn't run at all for the rest of the game. They didn't score for like 2.5 quarters. But I agree with you. The offensive line has got to protect Matt Ryan better.
Ryan, yeah.
The good thing though is if you're a Kyle Pitts or a Ridley owner, what you're looking at now is 2 guys that saw a big chunk of the target share. And for me, volume always overshadows efficiency. Matt Ryan is going to throw 600 times again this year. They're not going to have an effective run game. So I don't think their offense is going to be particularly good. Wasn't particularly good last year either. However, I still think the volume is going to be more than enough to give you good games from Pitts and still see Ridley have a really good season. But yesterday was brutal for them.
Well, what about Gage then? And I'll throw it back to Ben on that point, because I know you're keen and big on volume and that being a major factor from season long to DFS and just betting as a whole. To Laufey's point about, look, there's going to be volume with Pitts and clearly with Calvin Ridley, who let a couple go away in that second half. Can you apply my concern and meet that point halfway to then Russell Gage, who really got nothing out of that game?
I mean, definitely more concerning because it wasn't just an efficiency issue. It was a volume issue as well. I still think it's one game now. You look at what you saw, Atlanta so far, of course, dead last in the league in passing yards per 10. They're 3.9 per pass. Obviously that's going to rise, but
God,
it was just horrible. You would think, you look at someone like the Lions, they were never in that game, but you look at Goff's final stat line and you're like, okay, at least, they were slinging it all over the place. The backs and Hawkinson, these guys got involved. When you look at the Falcons, and they're a team that's kind of built to do that, I'm stunned, not that they lost the game, but just how unable they were to generate any passing offense. So that part's concerning, but I still think you're in a dome. You've got serious weapons all over the field. Unless Matt Ryan's completely done, and I don't think that's the case, they will be okay, and they'll still be prolific fantasy players.
He looked done yesterday, but you're right. There's a lot of football left. All right, let's move to the second big takeaway here. Rasa, will throw it back to you here as far as takeaway number 2 from week 1.
So it's kind of what I just talked about, actually, perfect segue. The Lions game, first of all, if you bet the Niners and you got that line late, thoughts and prayers, because that was one of the worst beats I've ever seen. How that landed on 8 is ridiculous.
I'm glad I bet that 2 months ago, because I definitely would have hit 8 for sure.
Yeah, I knew you
first half hit. I'll just say that.
How bad would that have been, though? Like,
awful.
Double 2-point conversions. They had 2, insane. All of that meant Goff was dropping back a ton, which happens when you're down by that much. But I thought the final stat line was extremely telling for how the Lions may be playing a lot, because they're going to be bad. The Lions backfield, you mentioned Swift as the guy yesterday on the DFS show that could get a lot of passing volume. He certainly did, as did Williams. They both were basically at double-digit targets and receptions in that game, and Hawkinson. So you look at the Lions passing attack, I think there could be massive volume when they're trailing, but I thought it was apparent and pretty eye-opening that it wasn't, a wide receiving core that of course doesn't have Golladay and Marvin Jones. They're choosing to replace a lot of that production with Hawkinson, who I know we were all really high on, and the running backs. I think these running backs in PPR situations are really set up to thrive this year.
Big time. Swift ran 41 routes yesterday, which is second most on the week behind only Elliott, who ran 44. Jamal Williams was tied for 14th in routes. Between the two, they ran 61 routes yesterday. And to your point, I know they were playing from behind, but they're going to keep playing from behind. They're not going to have significant enough leads. And if they do, then okay, good. They have a decent enough run blocking line that Swift could be good there. So I think you're going to get outs with DeAndre Swift, which is good. What I worry the most about is touchdown equity. And I know that they scored a lot, but I'm all in all, I'm mostly with you there, Ben. And I will say this much too. The one spot I did a same game parlay, Niners first quarter spread, first half spread, and then Swift over 35 receiving yards. If you would, Ben, I'll throw this to you real quickly, but I'm assuming that these books, because we were both very high on Swift receiving yards yesterday, talked about it on the DFS show. They're going to adjust for this, right? Like after week one, they have to.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the books are, with prop specifically, that's a whole nother conversation, but I think there's still ample opportunities to see how some of the personnel changes in philosophy can really benefit. You can take advantage of it with their end in season long. And I think the Lions are a perfect example of that. People look and they say, oh, a ridiculous game script. They're a bigger underdog this week than they were last week. It's going to be bad for a lot of these games in Detroit. Goff is going to be looking to these guys early and often. That's not changing this year. There's no doubt in my mind.
No, and he threw a pick, right? But other than that, it wasn't like he was all over the place, throwing up all over himself, like his shoes were tied together. They were able to move the football in that second half, and that's just going to happen where good teams are going to beat the shit out of them in the first half, and you're going to see just raw throwing. It's similar without the talent, right, that we just laid out that strategy of Atlanta, where it's just down, throw. They just don't have the talent, clearly, that they have on the outside there that the Falcons are boasting. All right, let me throw mine in here real quick, and then Lofty will end our week one takeaways. We'll jump right into the waiver wire as well. Throw that out there on chat. If you have your sneaky waiver wire pickup for week two, hit us up, and we'll get to them as well. The Rams offense, I think there's probably a pretty big collective exhale that you got from all different facets last night. Bears or not, it was their first game with Matthew Stafford. They were able to run the ball, and they were able to move the ball around. We know that, from both Kupp, Woods there, who didn't have a dominant game by any means outside that score. You also have one of the more consistent tight ends in the game that you can throw to. So just to see this offense led by Matthew Stafford, who was able to throw the ball pretty much anywhere and everywhere he wanted, that's a really good sign without totally overreacting from one game. That's what we wanted to see, was not only how it would work, but when it worked, to work that efficiently. So I think there's a huge collective exhale if there was any concern about Stafford working with this new team and this new offense, that they were able to move the ball consistently and also establish that running game where clearly there was, I think, some concerns, just some doubt maybe coming into this season.
I am overreacting. I think this is going to be a dominant offense. I mean, Cooper Kupp, even downfield, was targeted. Stafford's second throw in a Rams jersey was longer than any pass that Jared Goff has thrown in his last 2 years with the Rams. Like, Sean McVay wanted Matthew Stafford because he can open up the offense. Let's not forget about Van Jefferson, or the fact that Tyler Higbee played almost 100% of snaps at tight end, almost 100% of snaps. Robert Woods is the one guy I'd worry about, because him and Kupp, McVay used to run more 3 receiver sets than anybody, right? Like all those guys, including with Josh Reynolds, a lot of them, they'd be out there for like 100% of snaps, but Woods lost a decent amount of them to Van Jefferson. And you also have Deshaun Jackson, who's going to be a rotational wide receiver. So that's the only thing, but I think this offense is going to be great. Last thing, their run game was awful through the first 3 quarters. Darrell Henderson couldn't get anything going, but he got all of the running back carries and all of the running back snaps up until the last couple minutes of the game, where they were just trying to clean up. And then they finally got the run game going pretty strong in the fourth quarter. All in all, I'd say very successful. if you own skill players for the Rams, you should feel really good right now, specifically Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee.
NFC West, man, it's going to be
really
crazy. Like
beast of a division.
There's no doubt. And Van Jefferson, we're going to be talking about him. I have a feeling in a couple of segments because he looked great. Sean McVay, it reminds me a lot of the Saints, really, with they changed the quarterback and it's unlocked some new wrinkles within this offense. And it seems like Sean McVay now, he's just got new things to deploy, new skill set players, and Stafford, as long as he can remain healthy, he just has elements that Goff really didn't have. So you definitely have to feel encouraged. Woods, it's not the best start, of course. And I do worry about just, there's only so many weapons and Higbee looks to be seriously a focal point. I liked him last night a little bit and he definitely performed. So I get it, but on the whole, I mean, how could you not say that the Rams look like one of the serious contenders offensively to put up a lot of points each week?
Without a doubt. All right, Lofty, take us home. Final week 1 takeaway, and we are going to seamlessly segue into the waiver wire.
Week 1 takeaway, and just a reminder, would be that the last one is teams with mobile quarterbacks and good run blocking, good offensive line, good downfield blocking does not make the running back worse. You hear about this all of the time. Yeah, maybe they eat into a few carries. Maybe the volume isn't quite as much there. And I said, volume's king, but the efficiency that you see with good run blocking and a mobile quarterback that is a dual threat that can run those option plays and can keep the defense off of on their heels, it's huge. I mean, look how it's worked for Lamar Jackson. Look, even yesterday, and I'll get to the number 1 team, but look even yesterday how it worked against the one of the best defenses in the league for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Buffalo Bills really struggled offensively, and the Steelers defense is legit. But Devin Singletary carried the ball 11 times for 72 yards, okay?
Yeah.
Against a really good defensive front. But with the Eagles, I look at this team, and we had no idea. We said it every week. We have no idea what they're going to look like, right? And I still think to some extent, yesterday, I don't think it was a mirage, but you can't crown this team yet. The Falcons aren't a good defense. What I will say, though, is the holes that opened up were insane when you know that Jalen Hurts could be running or Miles Sanders or Kenny Gainwell could be running. And the downfield blocking from guys like Mailata and Jason Kelsey puts this team in a situation where you could be, if this offensive line stays healthy, looking at a really, really phenomenal run game that is very dangerous because you have Hurts, you have Gainwell, and of course you have Miles Sanders, healthy offensive line. And I think that goes to show you that just because you have a mobile quarterback and you could go across the league, if you have a good run blocking, dude, these offenses can absolutely hum. And I'm becoming more and more okay with the idea that I don't care if he steals a couple carries a game if my running back's going to average another yard per attempt because of it.
This team could lead the league in rushing, right? Who said that? Was it you, Rasa, or Lofty?
Might have been
said
Ben.
that.
I don't think I don't think I said that, but
I mean, yeah, I don't know if I said that either, but
okay, then I'll take credit for
it.
This
It's a
team
good
can
one
lead
to
the
have
league
in your Rolodex. I just think I come from this a little uniquely because you see this in college all the time. You see teams with serious dual threats, and what you're sacrificing is volume, but it makes up for it in efficiency. And the Ravens are, of course, the blueprint in the NFL to see this. Dobbins, we saw, it'd be like, oh my God, it's so hard to go to him because Lamar, he can steal the touchdowns, he can steal the yards. Yeah, but when Dobbins gets those touches, the defense, it's not like they're not expecting it, but they have so many other things they're planning for within the rushing attack. It makes up for it with efficiency. So they can absolutely coexist. And if it's a unit that's really good at it, there's no doubt the Eagles have a wrinkle. I hate to reference the Awesemo Odds Show, but Eytan, we just talked about this, how more and more teams seem to be going to at least where your quarterback can keep a defense honest because it helps your running back so much if they have to worry about, is this quarterback going to pull the ball and run around the end on these kind of, designed run plays.
See, that's another phrase there that Lofty would be like, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would you hate to mention something where you're promoting it in a good way?
Well, he loves to mention it. He's just humble.
That's what I mean. Right.
Yeah, exactly. I actually thought that the moment he said it. I was just going to let it go.
I could see your forehead, the wheels moving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It pains me to mention the Awesemo Odds channel that I worked so hard on and would love you to go check out and subscribe to. But
I leave the selling to you, Lofty. You built the channel up. Give me some love on the Awesemo Odds channel.
Dude, you guys are crushing it, man. The videos are phenomenal. I just think it was funny the way it was worded.
No, it's hilarious.
Like
all right, let's move right from there. And again, a reminder here, we have a couple of great things going on. Just hit that thumbs up button as you pop into the show here. On the chat, you want to hit us with your sneaky week 2 waiver pickup. We're going to dive deep into that right now, and then subscribe to, as Lofty mentioned, all 3 of our channels: the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel, the Awesemo Odds channel, and our main Awesemo DFS channel. 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum with your first Yahoo DFS deposit. That's $100 per month, as Lofty has broken down. See, breakdown. Now you're going to get on me with my grammar. Broke down all the math for you. Kenny Gainwell, though, that's a nice little segue into the waiver wire here, especially at that running back position, Lofty. Yeah.
Look, I'm not going out there and spending 100% of my fab budget on Kenny Gainwell, right? I just want to be clear about that. It was nice that he played 35% of snaps. It was nice that him and Sanders were the only 2 running backs out there, and that Kenny Gainwell was the 2-minute drill back. But a couple of things that are not concerning to me. One, I actually think that Miles Sanders, if he continues to not drop passes, and he did not drop any yesterday because that has been his biggest issue, we'll start getting more passing down work, plenty of that. He still saw 5 targets. He ran more routes than Gainwell and saw 15 carries, 20 total touches. You should be happy about that, drafting Sanders in the 5th round or wherever you got him, okay? Especially given the efficiency. But I think Gainwell's a perfectly fine pickup. And if Sanders were to go down, and he's missed some games in the 2 years as a pro, then Kenny Gainwell becomes an immediate potential league-winning running back. And you have to consider that as well. I look at it this way, and this is why I loved Gus Edwards before he went down. Can a guy have utility in the offense even if he's the backup? Kenny Gainwell checks those boxes. Can he be a potential league-winning back if the starter goes down? Kenny Gainwell checks that box 100 times. Boston Scott did not see the field, okay? So that's what I'm looking for, and he fits the bill. So right now, he's just a backup. I don't want to spend 100% of my fab budget on him. But if I could get him onto my roster, and then if I could flex him once in a while because he did get a couple looks in the red zone, I'm cool with that too. But that's where I stand on Kenny Gainwell. I think he's a good pickup at a running back position that is generally very thin.
All right, Rasa, let's move to your waiver wire running back.
I mean, mine is
because I agree. I think we
Gainwell,
exhausted that. And it's a great point, Lofty.
I'm going to use kind of the same arguments for Gainwell in this one with Elijah Mitchell, who of course is going to be a hot topic here. He comes in via injury, just dominates the touches. What's there to say? Now, I don't know exactly, and I haven't seen it, Chad, if you've seen it. I don't know how hurt Mostert is. I don't think it looks serious.
I read something that he was signaling that he thinks he'll be okay for week 2.
Okay.
And it's Mostert. He could get hurt in week 2.
That's very true. Yeah. Guy can't stay healthy. And again, I liked what you said there with Gainwell. There's almost like 2 different things you're kind of factoring in. What's the upside if something crazy happens? And then what if nothing good happens? Can this guy contribute at all, or is it a complete waste? And to me, when you're in an offense like San Francisco, clearly there's more room for than just one back. And so far, I mean, I know he's the 6th round pick, but it seems like Elijah Mitchell is the guy that they're a little higher on in terms of who could operate behind Mostert. So you've got the upside if something happens and it's a long-term situation. He showed he can carry the load. If not, I don't think he's just, we're never going to see this guy again. So similar to Gainwell in Philly, Mitchell's a guy that's going to contribute on a run-heavy offense that should be grinding teams late in games.
Yeah, again, utility plus league-winning upside if he goes down. Both Gainwell and Mitchell have elite run blocking, right? Both of them have elite run blocking. Both of them should have good offenses, and both of them are going to be guys that could take over and put up huge numbers if one of their starters, both of who have been, one's far more injury prone than the other, but if both of them go down.
Let me throw one name out before we move to the wide receivers, and it's just Mark Ingram, because we focus so much on Houston. And again, we'll talk about the quarterback spot, I'm sure, moving forward based on what we've seen. And really, from Brandon Cooks being a play that there's going to be volume throwing the football with the anticipation that this team is going to be down so much. Now they handle Urban Meyer. You talk about a narrative. As soon as you saw that report about Urban Meyer pissing half his team off, that team was cooked. But with Mark Ingram getting a ton of action, 20% roster we saw on Yahoo for you, Lofty there. What about it, right, that is sustainable here? at all with Ingram in this Houston backfield?
Nothing outside of the fact that he saw 26 carries, and that's a ton. Like that's a lot.
Shit ton.
That's a lot.
Ridiculous.
He saw 70% of running back carries in that game. And are they going to be scoring that much? No, I'm not saying they are. Are they going to, is it going to be a situation where they're in a spot where they can just run the ball down an opponent's throats every week? No, but I do think that Mark Ingram is worth a small bid, you know, or if you're weak at the position, like he was the 70% of running back carries. Only Joe Mixon had more carries than Mark Ingram yesterday. And that happened in overtime, right? So if you're just talking regulation, Mark Ingram had more carries than anyone in the league in week 1. That has to be worth something, right? I mean, it has to be worth something. And that's as far as I'm willing to go with it. I'd put a small bid on Mark Ingram if I grab him as a bye week guy, or if he keeps getting the lion's share of opportunities, sure. But it sucks because you're not going to have him as a pass catching back. So he is very one-dimensional in an offense that won't be nearly as good as they were yesterday.
I worry about that. Like you got maybe or there's all right. Maybe Houston's better than everybody thinks. I think that's probably not the case. He was in the perfect game script. What happens when they are, look at this week, they're 12.5-point underdogs to Cleveland. Like, how is he going to, he's not seeing 26 carries. That's not happening. And when they're down, what is, you know, Philip Lindsay and the rest of these backs give him? So that's a little concerning. This was the perfect 1 in a million type game script. I think that is the big concern here.
You're really playing the matchup each week with this team. But again, even with Jacksonville, as much as we were on that under and as much as we thought this Jags defense,
that team
shaking his head, that Jags defense, I'm Jazz Raz, would show up. It's, you mentioned Philip Lindsay, and that's where I think you really have to balance out, where you definitely have more of a pass catching running back out there with Lindsay, which would assume that those touches get taken away, even if you're down probably 7 to 10 points, as opposed to maybe this extreme panic mode of, oh my God, you know, they're going to be down 25, 40 points, whatever it may be throughout each game. Even if they're only down a couple of points is my point, where they could easily move away from him. All right, let's move to the wide receiver spot here and jump out with Van Jefferson. We've got a couple of names to hit on, but really, Lofty, let's throw it back to you here and get a big name that we should be looking at ahead of week 2.
At wide receiver?
Yeah.
All right. So there are a couple of them to consider. Obviously, the running backs we're just usually more worried about because they're harder to come by. As crazy as this sounds, I'm looking at someone like Zach Pascal. Paris Campbell had 1 reception for 24 yards. That was a travesty. I mean, I honestly don't know how that happens. And by the way, if Nyheim Hines is still on your waiver, pick him up. He's around like 30% or 70% owned. So 30% of teams leagues don't have him. And Carson Wentz targeted his running backs 39.5% of the time because the guy's afraid to throw deep. But yeah, Carson Wentz targeted Paris Campbell only 3 times, Michael Pittman 4 times. Zach Pascal saw 5 targets and 2 of them went for touchdowns. I'm not saying be excited for him, but what I am saying is that we don't know who Wentz's favorite target is going to be. T.Y. Hilton's going to be out probably an extended period of time. He's been in the league for double-digit years. Is it crazy that Pascal is actually the guy that gets more opportunities than maybe a Paris Campbell, who's also injury-prone and has only played 9 games in 2 seasons? I don't think so. I will say this much, though. I'm not enamored with any wide receiver pickups this week. I'm not going with aggressive bids on any of them. Week 1, it's really easy to put too much on the line, right? And I don't want to do that. So you be careful about how much you're bidding on certain guys that had 2 touchdowns but only 4 or 5 targets, unless you're in a really deep league and you're stretched really thin.
Yeah, that's a really good point to make with your FOB budget. You know, that's something I'm probably guilty of in my leagues. You think it's such a short-term focus with it, and you don't, there's going to be things that pop up in week 4 and week 6, week 10, you know, that you really need to plan for. So it's always good to put a feeler out there. And if you get it, great, but I wouldn't overreact. I do want to ask you guys, though, we had an interesting question from chat on this exact topic with Brandon Ayuk. They said, you know, a couple people in their leagues dropped him Is that someone you snatch up and hope that maybe this was just a bad start of the season? Or do you think he is so buried right off the bat that you don't want anything to do with him?
That was overcome, by the way, in a 10 and 12 man league. So two different, or I think it's 10 and 12 person leagues overcome, and dropped Ayuk there.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you're talking about a middle rounds guy.
Right.
Here's what I'd say. If you have a deep bench, sure. But right now, if I don't have a deep bench, no, I don't think I'm going to. You had the wide receivers. It's not that they're a dime a dozen, right? That's not what I'm saying. But I don't want a part-time player on my bench just hoping that eventually maybe he'll be good. Trent Sherfield saw 3 targets and Ayuk wasn't targeted a single time. No, and Deebo Samuel had 12 targets. Kittle had 5. No, this is concerning, especially on a run-heavy team. No, I probably wouldn't have dropped him yet unless I found a much better option. But I have no interest in going to Ayuk right now. It's very concerning.
But isn't there middle ground though, guys, as opposed to like, all right, you're not concerned at all about Ayuk and dropping him? I mean, shouldn't there be more of
who are you picking up?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I would defer to kind of how I am with Mike Evans, where it's like, and not to that extreme, but I would defer to Ayuk has a better chance of working out for you more times than not than just dropping him after the first game, right?
Well, what I'm saying is it's nuanced because if you dropped him and there was someone on the waiver that you actually think is going to be significantly better, then no, I don't think it's all that crazy. Ayuk played 26 snaps in the game, 26 snaps. So
yeah, that's disappointing. That's
majorly
disappointing.
Less than half of the snaps in the game where they scored 40 plus points. Sometimes you have to separate like the name value and where you drafted him from what's actually going on the football field. Right. And yeah, I probably would have waited another week. But again, if I could pull the trigger on, like say a Nyheim Hines was there, I probably would have grabbed Nyheim Hines and dropped Brandon Ayuk. Yeah.
What about Mitchell? Like one of the backs we talked about.
Yeah. The problem is a lot of people drafted Ayuk is what, like their second wide receiver? Sucks.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you have that heavy of investment in Ayuk, then maybe you're less inclined to just drop him unless you have a clear-cut gem, as you said, that you're moving to the waiver wire.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say he's probably on average a wide receiver 3, but a guy that you're drafting within a starting lineup for sure.
Right. So let's look at one more name here. And again, I don't know, I doubt it, right? Any name that we've thrown out here on the waiver wire would probably not be that target. Like you wouldn't drop Brandon Ayuk for Christian Kirk, despite him having a monster game with the 2 touchdowns and something that probably isn't going to be sustainable. But when you put up 38 points, people are going to benefit outside of DeAndre Hopkins.
I mean, the Niners put up a ton of, that's the worry part is the Niners. It wasn't like they were anemic on offense. They were great. This wasn't Ayuk, but yes, Christian Kirk is a name that I think if you think this Arizona team has unlocked something and it looks like Kyler is getting more dynamic, there's going to be plenty to go around. And a lot of people wanted to see what's up. It almost goes to Luffy's theme with some of these backs. And I think Rondale Moore is going to be very good. And he is an intricate part, but that doesn't mean that Christian Kirk is just straight irrelevant. There are other guys, AJ Green, a lot of mouths to feed, but we talked about this on the DFS show. They got 4 wide receiver sets all the time in Arizona. So there's a lot of opportunity for all these guys. It's no surprise to see Christian Kirk, on the waiver wire in discussions after what we saw yesterday.
And you might get a couple games like this, but what grosses me out is like, listen to the amount of routes run. Hopkins 34, AJ Green 32, Edmonds 25, Kirk 22, Rondale Moore 14, targets. Hopkins 7, AJ Green 6, Edmonds 6, Kirk 4, Edmonds 5, Kirk 5, Rondale Moore 5. It's so tough. Yeah, you're right. They're going to run a lot of four receiver sets. You talk about that air raid offense under Cliff Kingsbury, but for me, and I don't know if you guys disagree, The only guy I feel good about is DeAndre Hopkins. It's the only guy I feel good about. Aside from that, I think you're just going to see, a carousel each week of rotating quality performances. And it's going to be so difficult to try and figure out which one of those guys outside of Hopkins weekly basis is going to give you what you need when there's such a flat distribution of targets and route to run.
Does this drop? And clearly we're not doing anything at all as a result of it, but to your point about spreading the ball out and really the evolution of Kyler Murray as a passer, it's not like DeAndre Hopkins takes a step back, but you talk about somebody who could maximize 6 or 7 grabs, maybe as good as anybody outside of Devontae Adams. I wonder if that damages at the very least some of D-Hop's productivity this year, not from a negative standpoint of the team, but really from him because of so many different looks throughout where they know he could get 6 or 7 grabs and that could be good enough for 100, 110 yards.
They didn't need to open up the offense yesterday. When they're in a spot and they need to open up the offense, and by open up the offense, I don't mean they didn't score points. I mean, it wasn't like this voluminous offense with a ton of snaps and, we're out there a ton. Kyler Murray only threw 32 times. He was just wildly efficient. That's not going to happen every time. When you're in the thick of it and you're in a battle, Hopkins is your guy, man. He's got to be your guy. To me, it would be lunacy to not look at that guy who is a human cheat code and be like, I want to get him 10 plus targets because that's how we win this game.
All right, let's wind down. I'm sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No, yeah. I think when they're in competitive games, you're going to see target share concentrated to Hopkins more often than not. I don't think that's really debatable. He's unbelievable. The catch he made early in that game was just, it's insane.
Oh my God. The adjustment in the end zone.
How?
Right,
I don't know.
He's definitely not going away. I didn't mean to intimate that.
You want to drop DeAndre Hopkins in your leagues.
No. I'm not saying that. I want somebody thinking like, come on, you Shander guy telling me on this. No. Speaking of chat, by the way, we have nearly 200 people watching. The ratio here needs to be pulled up. We're going to give you a couple more minutes, one more position to look at, but just hit that thumbs up button. It's right there. It's easy. You just have to move your mouse over it and then smash it. And that's really what we ask. And also that you're subscribed here to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Tight ends. We have a backup here that I don't know, depending on your league, might still be out there in Zach Ertz to be able to pick up. He was out there 40 plus snaps, 41 snaps for Zach Ertz for a backup tight end who forgot how to play football last year. That's all I'm saying. If he's out there, he might be a target to look at.
Well, and he missed a large chunk of that third quarter because he got hurt.
Yeah, and he looks to be okay, by the way, moving forward. But yes.
Well, yeah, I'm saying he would have played more than that.
Right.
I think he's in a deep league. It's fine. For me, it's not as much liking Zach Ertz, but more so worrying about Dallas Goedert. So what I would be worried about is what does that look like if Zach Ertz is healthy the whole game? Are we going to see an even distribution of snaps and of targets? And given that you already have Devonta Smith and Rager and Miles Sanders and Gainwell, who combined for 8 targets yesterday in a game that they were comfortably ahead for a while, that's my biggest concern.
Ertz. I mean, we talked about this, with Goddard and Ertz. I think that's one more to monitor than make any. That's where I think you get into the realm of overreacting a little bit. Like, it's been 1 week. I think it's a decent start for a guy. Let's just see. I think you'll have more opportunities maybe to pounce, maybe not on Ertz if he continues, but tight end is I don't know, a position I feel that's a little easier to maneuver if you're in a jam.
All right, well, let's start there then. Who should we be maneuvering to in a jam here, Rasa?
I mean, you should have just drafted TJ Hawkinson. You'd be
here we go.
Man, he looked good.
He looked damn good.
And we were not that we did anything prolific here, but or prophetic, but Jared Goff clearly wants to lean on somebody like TJ Hawkinson.
Damn right.
And that's not going to change all year. Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward to Thanksgiving for the first time ever, I think, because the Lions game, I never survive it, but this year it's going to be different. Yeah. Somehow Theo Riddick is going to still score. He's not even on the team.
Oh, dude. Last year, I remember walking the dog and I had to go somewhere, but I'm watching the scores on my phone, and I know I had a bunch of DeAndre Swift, and Adrian Peterson scored twice in the first quarter, and it was just like, that was it. Thanksgiving was over, and I went and I saw my family, and I excoriated all them. I sat in the corner, and when they talked to me, I just threw food at them and growled.
Every year.
Yeah.
Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick. Anyway, none of these guys are tight ends as far as I know. David Njoku is, though. This is a guy that, he's got the talent, looked good, 3 for 76. I just wonder still with Cleveland where he's going to fit in. Odell didn't play. The passing attack was in flux a little bit. Certainly Hooper is a prevalent part, but maybe there's a situation where he can coexist. I'm not the biggest Baker fan, but clearly Cleveland is trending in the right direction. And Njoku, he's an athletic, explosive type player if he can get any sort of volume.
Played well, and definitely if you can jump in on that now, especially as we mentioned, guys like Ertz may already be up there as far as a second tight end and maybe not as deep leagues. Feel like Njoku is going to be available for you even in like those shallower leagues. So I love it there as far as that play. Lofty, anyone else you want to hit on the way out?
Yeah, I think people are going to overreact significantly on Juwan Johnson. And this is what happens when you score touchdowns, right? He played 11 snaps, okay? He played 12 snaps in a game. Yes, he ran routes on 9 of them and was targeted 3 times and had 3 for 21 and 2 scores. But what if I told you that Adam Troutman is actually the guy that you should be targeting here? The Dayton product, right? Fellas, the Dayton product that was drafted with a compensatory pick on day 2. But he played 51 snaps, okay? Ran the second most routes on the team, 18. Now, I just want to be clear. 18 routes sounds like not a lot of routes. It's not, but they only threw 20 times. So on how many of those dropbacks how many of those dropbacks did we see him actually running routes? I would assume it was a decent amount. So I don't have to assume. I'm sorry. Winston dropped back 23 times. So, right, that's a lot. That's a high percentage. Give me the guy that's going to be on the field, running routes, out there on passing downs, especially in games where they're not routing a team like Green Bay. And this is not going to be the scenario every week. They're going to be in some dogfights. And if Troutman's out there running routes with no Michael Thomas and Callaway clearly being somebody that's not nearly what we thought he was going into the year, Troutman's going to have some big games. I would go with him over Juwan Johnson. People in your league are going to pick up Johnson. Be the smart one. Pick up Adam Troutman.
You can always take advantage of people overreacting to TD variance.
Huge.
If he doesn't fall in the end zone twice, are we even mentioning him? No. And I don't think that him scoring makes him more likely to score in the future. It just doesn't work like that. So that's always a giant red flag. Unsustainable production. Definitely let other people, chase that, use their budget where they shouldn't.
By the way, did you guys see the adjustment Tyler Lockett made on that touchdown?
The first
one?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of those days for Lockett where we may not see it for another 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, but for sure. But I don't know if people understand just how, and I'm not saying I was a professional NFL player, but just understanding like how difficult of a catch that is when you're looking over the left shoulder, turning right last second and making that adjustment on a 60 or 55-yard bomb.
Ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. All right, everybody. We appreciate it. We'll be back on Friday at 2:00 Eastern. A lot of start-sit activity as we hit week 2 at Lofty_D, at JazzRaz DFS, at Shander Show for me. Thanks to Chris for producing. Thanks to you out there. On your way out, if you haven't already, what are you doing? Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Thanks to Yahoo. Take full advantage of that. 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum with your first Yahoo DFS deposit. Have a great week, everybody, and good luck.